Hey guys. So today we're gonna talk about the kind of first period, I guess you could say, of Roman history proper. Um, this goes from 753 BC to 509 BC. This is known as the Roman Kingdom um, or monarchy. Um, and it is still kind of shrouded in mythology. So there's not a lot of contemporary writing or things that we have to verify stories and so forth that we have received from this concerning this time period. But um, there were during this time there were seven kings of Rome. The most famous, of course, being Romulus. He was also the first king of Rome. And the Roman kings were um, basically like absolute rulers. They had um, chief executive powers. They were also like the chief priest. The pontifex is the um, word that's often used for that. They also had legal chief um, authority over legal matters, over judicial matters, so on and so forth. So they really there was very little check on their power. So they really were very much similar to like an absolute ruler. Now Romulus came to power, and he is the one that that Rome is named after. And he established the Senate. That's one of the things that he is known for doing. And as Rome was growing, Romulus attracted around him a lot of different people, and a lot of them were kind of vagabonds and hopeless wanderers, if you prefer the terminology of Mumford and Sons. You guys might be too young for them, but anyway, he it got to the point where the city was growing pretty well, but there was a problem in that they didn't have any or very few women in the city. So even though the city was growing, it obviously could not sustain that growth if there aren't ladies. So there is a story about Romulus inviting a local tribe known as the Sabines to a religious festival, and in the middle of the festival, they um, steal a bunch of the Sabine women, and they become their wives. Now, the Sabines, of course, were naturally um, rather upset about this, and there was a couple battles that were fought. Um, but the women that were abducted eventually make peace between the two, and the Sabines and the Romans kind of become um, friends in a kind of joint kingdom. All right. So that was a kind of well-known story about with Romulus. And then Romulus eventually, obviously, passes on, but there's a couple stories about his death. One of them being about um, him kind of being dismembered by people in the midst of a storm, and people weren't able to find his body. But there's another story, and the one that's probably more popular, believed at least among the common Romans, was that Romulus was actually deified, was made a god, and he becomes one of the kind of important deities for the Romans too, under the name Quirinus, Quirinus. So he, at the end of his his rule. He becomes deified after he has died or something. They don't know. Anyway, the next king was a fellow named Numa Pompilius, and great name. And Numa Pompilius was I believe he was a Sabine. Yes, he was a Sabine. And Numa Pompilius was known particularly for his piety and his religious practice and religious reforms, and he introduced a lot of different elements into Roman religion. And he was a very peaceful king. So he established the Vestal Virgins in Rome. He established the office and duties of Pontifex Maximus, okay, which was literally means the greatest priest. He also reformed the calendar as well. But Numa Pompilius, known for his religious endeavors, a very peaceful king. The next king after him was kind of the opposite, and you can actually see it sort of in his name. His name is Tullus Hostilius. And Tullus Hostilius was a very warlike king, and Tullus waged war on Elba Longa, which you may remember was that colony that Ascanius had founded. And he destroys Elba Longa and kind of integrates its population into Rome. All right, and then he meets a rather not so great demise by getting hit by a bolt of lightning. His house gets hit and he gets burned up. So yeah. He was very warlike and did not really regard the gods too much. The fourth king, a fellow named Ancus Marcius, and Ancus Marcius was embarked on quite a few different building projects for the Romans. He built a prison on the Capitoline Hill. So it doesn't sound that great, but if you think about it, prisons are very important things. He fortified a hill called the Janiculum, which is on the western side of where Rome is. He built a bridge across the Tiber, founded the port of Ostia. Ostia, now this is important one. You may remember this from when we were reviewing for the National Latin exam. Ostia is the port town for Rome. So Rome is not actually built on the sea. All right, it is inland a good ways. So Ostia was the port, and then that they would receive things from sea and then send it up the Tiber. Built the city's first aqueduct. All right, and then, yeah, very peaceful king, a lot of building projects. Okay, now the next king, the fifth king, Lucius Tarquinius Priscus. Okay, and Priscus was of Etruscan origin, and the Etruscans were a tribe that was very powerful north of Rome. And they were very influential on Roman culture and all that. So Priscus waged some wars, both with the Sabines and the Etruscans, and he greatly increased the size of Rome, and he also brought a lot of new members into the Senate as well. This is a kind of a fun one too. He built the large sewer system in Rome known as the Cloaca Maxima. Now, sewers. You don't really think of them as being that great, but they're really important, because if you don't have a sewer, stuff happens that you don't want to happen. So he built the Cloaca Maxima, and he drained an area between the seven hills of Rome, because remember, Rome is built on the seven hills, and the Palatine, I think, was the first one to be really populated, but the others eventually were as well. And Priscus also, let's see here, he built the Circus Maximus as well, which is where they had those chariot races. Let's see here, he built the Pons Sublicius. It's another very important bridge. Okay, and then after him, the sixth king was a fellow named Servius Tullius, and Servius Tullius was the son-in-law of Priscus, and he reorganized the army. He instituted a new constitution. All right, and did a lot of things for the kind of political life of the Romans. All right. Now, unfortunately, Servius Tullius meets a very, very nasty demise at the hands of his daughter, named Tullia, and her husband. And he basically, he gets, if I remember the story correctly, he gets like thrown down a series of steps, and then his daughter like drives a chariot over his dead body or something like that. It was a really, really nasty sort of end for this guy, who was a, you know, all things considered, was a pretty decent king. But Tullia was very ambitious, and she wanted her husband, Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, to be king and in control. So they killed off Servius Tullius. So Tarquinius Superbus, the final king, he was the son of Priscus, so the fifth king, and then obviously the son-in-law of Servius Tullius, like we mentioned. And he had developed a reputation for being very warlike, waged a lot of wars with their neighbors, and also was just a very violent man, and really a tyrant to the Roman people, and the Roman Senate. He did do a couple notable public works, completed the Temple of Jupiter, Optimus Maximus. He worked on the Cloaca Maxima some more, and the Circus Maximus. But he was just a cruel man. And his son also followed in his footsteps, a guy named Sextus Tarquinius, who is known because he raped a woman named Lucretia. And Lucretia was a noble Roman woman. And Superbus wouldn't do anything about it. And eventually the Romans got so fed up with just how terrible Tarquinius Superbus was, that they drove him and his family out of the city. And one of those people was a guy named Collatinus, who was, I believe, Lucretia's husband, if I remember correctly. And then Lucius Junius Brutus as well. Brutus is a popular name, good name to know. And from ever after Tarquinius Superbus, the very name of king would have a bad negative meaning to the Romans. So that's why even during the empire, the emperors did not call themselves Rex, even though they had perhaps even more power in some cases than these early kings. Um, they for almost the whole time would avoid the term Rex when referring to themselves, and it all goes back to this one king that was just a real terrible person. So the Romans got fed up with the kings, drove that last king out, and then they set up the the Roman Republic, and that is where we will pick up with later. So, hope you guys are doing well, and love you, and talk to you later.